Normally, the mind gets attached by seeing or hearing something. It is mainly through the eyes and ears that the mind goes out and gathers things to satisfy its desires. Before the mind is attracted to something it sees or hears, you should have discrimination to see whether that object is good for you or not. The mind should not just go and grasp as it wants.
And welcome everybody. Non-attachment and practice are two very difficult concepts, especially non-attachment. You know, when people think of non-attachment, they think, oh, I have to let it go, as if it's so easy to let it go. It takes a lifetime sometimes to let things go. So how do you let go? You know, what is the process? And the process is going within. And please, again and again, it's a process. And this is what people forget. They think enlightenment just happens. I don't think that is possible unless you're one of these special saints and these special souls. The rest of us, I think, for me, enlightenment is simple. You know that you are not this body, you're not this mind, immortal self you are. And that's all you can know. But to know it with the mind and to know it with the brain, it's only words. It's only words. It's not really there, because when it's really in your soul and your consciousness, you feel very different. But it takes a long time to get there. So, and it's like really peeling off all these layers of consciousness from the very material that we're wrapped about. And we think we're not, just because we know a little bit of scripture or we know a little bit about yoga. We think we've shed it. No, really shedding it is really knowing I really am not this body. And this takes time. And Sani asked me a very good question the other day. She said, you said you are not enlightened. So how do we get enlightened? And I said, I don't know what enlightenment is. It wasn't what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for a way, a peaceful way. I was looking for a way to deal with pain and suffering. I was looking for what the yogi said, freedom, freedom, freedom. And I was looking for a way out of attachment. All my attachments, attachment to my home in Hong Kong, attachment to my life, attachment to what I had and what I had lost, and couldn't see, because of all those what I had lost, I couldn't see what I had. So I was only looking, if there is a God, I want to know who you are. And so the attachment to all those things happen by themselves with the process of meditation, with the process of Raj Yoga, with the process of studying. So many people taught me about realization. And I realized that at the core, we are all just love. Because you go to anybody, and with all the therapy, yoga therapy I've done in years, what is the missing factor that causes the pain? The feeling that they're not loved enough. The feeling that they are not enough. They may say all the right words, sing all the right words, but deep in their soul, they really don't believe that they're loved. And they're searching for this, maybe because of their past, maybe because of the way they were brought up, maybe because of the suffering they've seen. But because of that, it's like a mask over their face. So people want suffering to go away quickly. It's not about that. It's you understand suffering and you make friends with it. And that's what Sri Patanjali tells us. Pain that is yet to come becomes avoidable. What does that mean? Because now you've got the knowledge, you understand that life is moving, you understand that nothing is yours. I think that is the most hardest thing for people to understand. You know, nothing is ours, everything's on loan. It's so hard to do this. This home, you know, this computer, these people, nothing is ours. So if nothing is ours, people get very confused. Then what is life all about? So I just realized there's two ways to do it. Either you just say, I renounce it all, go on a mountain, pray, and live so peacefully, if that's your character. But if you love the earth, love it all. And this is my path. This is the path I took. As I love people and I love this world and I love being here, even though I know it's so painful and some of it is so crazy, especially now, and everything's going mad, it's still an adventure. I chose this adventure. I really believe the soul chose this adventure. And okay, so it's a bad part of my adventure now. How do you do it? And this is the non-attachment, to really see it as just a bad part in your movie and watch it and it will pass, and visualize. And this is the power of visualization. This is what saw me through. Oh, in 2 months, I'm going to be feeling so much better. Oh, and 3 months, wow. And in 6 months, the power of mind thought. What is visualization? What does Sri Patanjali tell us? Pratipaksha bhavana. Replacing the negative with a positive. Oh, Nalanie, I can't do it because I'm really feeling miserable. I really know you are feeling miserable. But by saying it again and again, what will happen? It gets worse, that's all. I know you're miserable. Accept it, you are. 100%. Now, how do I help myself? How do I change that pattern of thought? I'm in pain, I need to cry. You must cry, you mustn't hold it back. Cry, I'm in pain. This too shall pass. It will pass. So meanwhile, while all this pain is going on, what can I apply that could be like just for the moment, a band-aid till I can deal with all of it? What can I apply to help me? How can I help myself? Some people love to sing, some people love to dance, some people love to read. Find out what you love. Some people love to paint. Find out what can lift you off this, or just being with, for me, I think being with positive people is the best, because you forget yourself, or service is the best. Service for me is the highest mode of healing, because I know when my husband died, service gave me the strength to lose the attachment to my own story of suffering. It was my own story. It was nobody else's story. It was my story. And I was making it big. So how to make it small? By thinking my suffering. How many people have lost a partner? How many people? Not the only one. But you know what thought hit me? How do they do it without the spiritual path? How do they do it? Oh my God, I've got to help them get through this, because if I didn't have this, how do they survive? And then I met so many people who lost a partner and the rest of their life was misery. And I'm not doing that to me or my kids. We don't deserve it. So you see, so in service, then you heal yourself. You heal yourself. And that for me was take the tension away from I and the attention to that we're all one. And we are one family. So I have suffered, and because I have suffered, I don't need to attach to it. It's taught me how other people feel pain, and I want to have compassion. Again, going to the Buddha's teaching, Buddha says, the power of compassion. The power of compassion. Because you've understood the pain, all you have to do is give love now. That's all. Give love. That's all you can do in your pain. You can give love. So here's the question. In the mental modifications, the one about sleep, how can we know we had a good night's sleep? Does this mean when we sleep, it is our higher self sleeping, the watcher? If not, why is this something we have control over as a mental modification? Very good question. Very, very good question. Very deep question. Because if you read Sri Patanjali, in sleep he says, the example he uses is when you are asleep. How do you know you're asleep? You got up in the morning, I really had good sleep. There's still one thought. The higher self is the self that is everywhere and in everything. So the one that is knowing that you are asleep is actually you, a thought pattern. You're still there. Even in your sleep, you're still watching yourself. So it could come from buddhi, your intellectual kosha, right? It comes from Vijnanamaya kosha. You know, it's still, so Sri Patanjali is saying that you still have a thought there. So it's coming from somewhere that's within you. The higher self is just, if you can think of it as light, dynamic frequency, and just this pulsating energy of love. I can't explain it any way because there's no way one can explain it, but it's not yet the higher self. You are still there, and that's why it is part of a mental modification. It's still part of the mind stuff. And this is the consciousness that they talk about. If you read the lives of Vivekananda and all the great souls, or any of them, they're not even conscious of that thought. They just are. This is really difficult to put into words. You're not there anymore. And that's why they could go into trance for 8 or 9 hours. You cannot explain that state to anyone because then you're not there. And deep sleep, where Sri Patanjali is talking about, you're still in your mental modification. You're not yet totally free yet. Many times when I've been in deep sleep, deep sleep, and after years and years and years and years of doing my mantra, constantly, I mean, I do it all the time still. I make a cup of tea, I have a sip of water, the song goes on. All I can say is, by the practice of the mantra, whenever I wake up from a deep sleep, the first thing I hear is my mantra. The first thing I hear, and I don't even consciously do it. So even then, from the deep sleep, there is that mantra that awakens me. And
so it's more modifying your waking hour to then modify your sleep.
Correct. That's exactly it. When you modify your waking hours, you modify your sleeping hours. For example, I used to have terrible nightmares. Terrible, always. How many of you have recurring nightmares? Anybody in this room? Okay. I used to suffer from terrible nightmare. I was run over by a car constantly since I was a young girl. And this went on until I started doing the mantra. And the last time I had the dream, I must have been about 37. And I was about to and this is in a dream state, so you can see how powerful this is. I'm dreaming that the car is coming and I'm on the floor and the car's going to run over me. And at that moment, I'm chanting my mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, let's say, and I open my eyes and I go, oh, I didn't get run over by a car. After that, the nightmare disappeared, literally disappeared. So you can change, and this is why mantra chanting is so incredible. And this is why I tell people, when you get your initiation mantra, people get the initiation mantra, it's like a seed, and then they use it for 2 or 3 days and they don't use it anymore. And I think this is a big mistake. And this is why I don't like to do too many initiations today, because I see that. Because there's a connection when we are initiated together. There's a strength. There's a strength in sound. And we know the power of sound. We know the power of waves, thought waves. You know, it's just so unfortunate that now there's so much interference in sound that our thought waves are not strong enough as they used to be. But mantra chanting is one of the most powerful thought waves and really protects you. It really protects you. It creates an aura of frequency. Okay? It's a frequency. So it creates an aura around you and creates a protection. You know, many people tell me they feel that people are wishing them bad or saying something to them that is hurtful, and they feel it's getting to their energy field. Or nowadays, many feel I'm cursed, etc. I get lots of people like that, by the way, that believe people are doing black magic on them and using power against them. I get so many you just wouldn't believe. So the medicine I give them is mantra chanting. mantra chanting, thinking positive thoughts, because where the energy field is higher, people cannot enter, they cannot attack you. But if you are depressed and you're low, then all the negative thoughts you can get from the atmosphere. You get it from the atmosphere. So it's quite natural, all right? So chant your mantra, and that would be really good for you. Okay, so we'll continue with non-attachment. Last week we talked about the consciousness of self-mastery in one who is free from cravings for objects seen or heard is non-attachment. And I was going to read to you something from the Bhagavad Gita today, chapter 2 of the Gita, sloka 62 and 63. And here it says, I would like you to listen to this. I'm going to start with 60 because I think 60 is quite important too. If the senses become excited, Arjuna, they will carry away even the mind of a wise person aiming for perfection. But the yogi learns to control the senses by meditating on me as the highest goal. So the highest goal is meditating on your version of God or divine energy. What is your version? The highest. And when you meditate on the highest, your mind can become quiet, more like the mantra, to help you along. As the senses come under control, the yogi's wisdom becomes steady. So here, when we talk about non-attachment, we're really talking about senses, craving, right, for objects seen or heard. So you tell me, what are your senses? So you're very clear. Sight,
nose, hearing,
smelling, taste, hearing, and touch. Okay? This is what leads us outwards. Okay? We're constantly looking for approval. We're constantly looking for more. We're constantly comparing ourselves with everybody else. Oh, if only I had this. So that's the consciousness, all right? The senses going outwards, all right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see Arjuna, the reins of the 5 horses, right? The 5 horses represent your senses. They're always running, so you need to put a rein. So here he's saying, and this is the same thing as yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. If you put a rein on your senses, what happens? You restrain. You hold back. You hold back the senses because it's not you, it's the senses. And the senses give you the thought. And the thought you immediately attach to. And this is what happens. From brooding on sense objects, attachment to them arises. I really want this, I really want this car, I really want this partner, I'm really in love with this person, I think about it all day long. You get attached, okay? The more you think about something, the more attached you get, okay? Good or bad, you get attached. Out of that attachment, personal desire is born. Oh, I really want. And from desire, I'm going to add in a word here, it's not here. And from desire unfulfilled, anger arises. So you don't get what you want, angry, right? Why me? Why not me? Why can't I have this? There's an inner anger. There's an inner frustration. What did I do wrong? This is anger because you got attached to something. And you haven't even known that all this has happened to you because all you do is all day long think about that thing. And then you get distorted because your mind is only on one thought. Okay? So anger appears. Anger confuses the thinking process, which in turn disturbs memory. And this I see all the time in my therapy, especially with relationships, okay? They're doing really, really well, and suddenly 15, 20 years later, or 10 years, or 2 years, or whatever it is, they want to break up, right? And then it's all I hear is anger and blame. It's your fault. You did. And I go, hello, stop. Are you telling me you're both crazy that you're with each other and you can't stand each other? You must have loved each other once upon a time. There must be this love. Because hate and love are very, very close. When you hate somebody, you think about them all the time. When you love somebody, what happens? You think about them all the time. Right? So, and then they keep quiet. And then I say, this is not true. All you're telling me are horrible things which make you look like a fool to live with somebody who's so horrible. And then I ask them to think about good things. Think about the good things. You want to break up? Fine. No problem. You don't get along? Two people don't get along? No problem. But don't lie. You're lying to yourself that it was always so bad, because it wasn't always so bad. And because you're angry and you're hurt, you only see the bad. So try to balance it. It's not real. It's the bad is not real. And then they start to go, it's true. Then they talk about good times. Then they're kinder to each other in the breakup. They're kinder. And if one partner can't do it, one partner gets angry, the other one normally gets it. One partner normally gets it. And I tell the partner who gets it, I say, now, whenever they get angry with you, take a deep breath and let them go. Da 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 da. Scream, scream, scream. And you go, I'm busy. Om Shanti. Close the phone. Don't get into discussion. Don't. Because that's your attachment to this anger and this blame. It's an attachment to blame. Maybe the person is wrong, but it's an attachment that you keep wanting to fight to be right. And it's attachment to the ego. You're not going to win your case. They're not going to hear you, because when they're so angry, they really believe what they believe. You cannot get through to an angry person. Any of you tried that in your life? They don't hear you. It's like talking to a deaf person. And then many months later, if I see the angry person, I ask them, this is how you behaved. I don't think this is right. You know what they tell me? They don't remember. That's how it disturbs your memory. They don't remember. They literally don't remember, because anger is not part of our makeup. And when memory fails, reasoning is ruined. See, no reason. When reason is gone, one is lost. I know where I am. I don't know where I belong anymore. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know my place in the world anymore. And when this happens, it's actually a great shift in one's consciousness. When one is, hit with this pain, hit with this grief, hit with this disloyalty, hit with all the things, it is when that person with the right knowledge can really move forward, because they want peace. After that, there's a natural non-attachment. So much pain, so much pain, so much pain. And then you will come to a point after much pain, much anger, if you have the spiritual studies behind you, and you'll say, I want it anymore. You know what? I prefer peace. I really prefer peace. And you realize the only person that can give you that peace is yourself. You won't, and that's a great lesson. Nobody can give you peace. It's already there within you. So you have to go within and discover yourself. And that is non-attachment. And that's a discovery. And when you discover yourself, and that's when you start to take the spiritual path. And you see, as you get older anyway, life will teach you. When you're young, you think, the world is my oyster. People tell me, they get into relationships, happy ever after. And I go, what? Work ever after? It's work. But if you understand the work, and you understand you chose it because your personality needed that relationship, then you understand that the work is going to be fun. You're going to have good days and bad days, and you don't let the ego interfere. You don't let the ego interfere. And I'd like to read to you something on non-attachment from the Upanishads as well. And this is how you start to, like, in your mind, contemplate all these concepts, you know. Non-attached, when you let go, it's actually that you love more. You're not brooding on one thing. You're not waiting for something to happen. It's happening now. You're not waiting for tomorrow. Today I'm in pain. Today I'm suffering. Great, this is my lesson. And I will get through it. Maybe I'll write a poem. Yeah, most of the greatest poets wrote poetry when they were depressed. Do you know that? Coleridge was one. Gerald Manley Hopkins was another one. People write beautiful music when they're very, very depressed. So maybe that's when I wrote my book when I lost my husband. Do you see? So it's not a bad thing. It's something that has to come out. And actually, if you use it for service, it's the best thing. Then you realize the pain was the best thing that happened to you, because now you don't depend on anybody to make you happy. That pain was a perfect plan. Your soul asked to become free of your attachments. Your soul wants to go home free. That's what it is. And unless you forgive, and unless you let go, and unless you do all that, you will never be free. So I want to be free. Moksha. But I love people. So what do? Love everyone, expect nothing. Hard, isn't it? It's hard. It's so hard to do that. Expect nothing from the person who lives with me 24 hours a day. Nalanie, what are you asking me? I'm not asking you. I'm saying it's the only way to freedom. And when they behave in a way that you don't expect, just go, there it goes. It's my ego expecting. Good lesson. Step back. What's more important? I only have one boss. I keep saying that. I only have one boss. God is my boss. Because it will be the ego that will attack. Your ego, nobody else's ego. It's the ego that wants to be right. I have to be right. And it's the ego, it's nothing else to do with it. And that person comes to your life to test that ego. Question.
If you have a thought about a person and you think about it all day, what are you doing then?
Yeah, exactly. Brooding on that person all day long.
Yeah, but how can you change it?
Many ways. The whole of Patanjali, all the other sutras are to do with the many, many different methods you can use to change it. Many. He'll say, or you can meditate on the light, or you can use a mantra, or you can focus on the Om sound. But the first thing you need to do is Sutra 28, Book 2. By the practice, some of you know it, of the 8 limbs of yoga. What happens? Impurities dwindle away, and there dawns the light of wisdom, leading to discriminated discernment. I am proud of you guys. Listen. By the practice of the 8 limbs of yoga. So what do you have to do? What is practice and non-attachment? You have to do them side by side. So you practice. What do you practice? The 8 limbs of yoga. What do I tell all my students even before they start doing hatha, as you know? Study the 8 limbs of yoga. They are them. And most of all, yama niyama. You want to forget everything else? Forget it all. Just practice yama niyama in your life. And we will go into that deeply. What is yama niyama? Ahimsa, non-violence, satya, truthfulness, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, moderation, aparigraha, non-greed, socha, pure thoughts, santosha, practice contentment. By the practice of contentment, what happens? Supreme joy is gained. So what do? Oh, your mind is, good question, Sani. Your mind is going all over the place, right? You're thinking about that one thing, that one thought. No. Bless the world. You know, that's how I did it. That was the easy way for me. That's how I practiced. I saw the mental modifications were crazy in my mind. So I decided the only way I could go forward was, I was working in those days in a shop. 23 years I was working in a shop. And I didn't like my job, and I always complained about it. I never felt it was my place, but it was, because I had to learn humility there. So anyway, I'd walk into Main Street, and I would look into everybody's face and bless them. And when I had negative thought, this guy's got to grow. Wrong, change that thought. You don't know what that person went through in their life to have that miserable face. Change that thought. And I saw how many negative thoughts I had on a short walk from one place to the other. Oh my God, what a lot of work. And that's what I did every single day, non-stop. Then when I got my mantra, non-stop, took over. Mantra, walking, cooking, cleaning, mantra. And then one day, all I know is when I got angry, it doesn't mean you stop getting angry. You get angry at things still. You're human, right? Even Lord Jesus got angry. So people think, oh, if I get angry, I'm not a yogi. Oh my God, you're not Lord Jesus yet. And he even got angry. Do you know what I mean? Where are we fooling ourselves? I'm human. I got angry. I go say my mantra. And when people used to attack me, I'd listen to. I was attacked a lot when I started this path. I really was. And that was the best thing that happened to me. I was called a witch. I was called all kinds of things. A liar, a hypocrite, whatever. But it was the best exercise, because what I would do is listen one ear, out the other. But what helped me? Chanting the mantra while all this was going on. So let's say somebody's swearing at me, da, 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 and I'm just doing mantra. They think I'm listening. But I'm not, I'm bouncing. I still have that habit of bouncing. When sometimes people go da 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 da, bouncing. And when I bounce it, they get to hear themselves. Because you're not resisting, right? But on top, in your mind, you're doing a mantra which is going above the thought pattern. So, did I answer your question, Sani? So many practices. I love the practices. I think I spent so many years, still do, practicing. But it gets, after a while, becomes part of your body. You really don't have to think about practicing anymore that way. It becomes part of you. You do it for so long that you've already made the neuroplasticities happen. Yogas, chitta, vritti, nirodhas happen. As you all know, how many of you here have practiced it for so many years? Of course we're human, we're going to fall. So this is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And here it's called the path to immortality. Maitreyi, Yajnavalkya said to his wife one day, "The time has come for me to go forth from worldly life. Come, my dear, let me divide my property between you and Katyayani." Now, he had 2 wives, okay? So he's saying, I want to go now, last part of my life, I want to give everything away, so let me divide it. Shouldn't everybody do this towards the end of their life? Can you imagine? Nobody with problems. Here, you have this, and you have this, and bye, I'm going, it's all yours. No fights. Oh. And Maitreyi answers, "My Lord, if I could get all the wealth in the world, would it help me to go beyond death? Not at all. You would live and die like any other rich person. No one can buy immortality with money." She answers, "Of what use then are money and material possessions to me? Please tell me, my Lord, of the way that leads to immortality." And he says to her, "You have always been dear to me, Maitreyi, and I love you even more now that you have asked me about immortality. Sit here by my side and reflect deeply on what I say. A wife loves her husband not for his own sake, dear, but because the self lives in him." So anytime you're arguing with somebody, think the self lives in them. "A husband loves his wife not for her own sake, dear, but because the self lives in her. Children are loved not for their own sake, but because the self lives in them. Brahmins are loved not for their own sake, but because the self lives in them. Kshatriyas are loved not for their own sake, but because the self lives in them. Kshatriyas are the warrior caste. Brahmins are the intellectual caste. In Hindu, we Hindus divide castes like, the intellectuals, then the warriors that look after the place, then the Vaishnavas, which do the business people, and then the Sutras, the basic workers. Nobody is superior to anybody. It's just that we need all these to make the world work. You need staff, right, if you want to run a business. So that's why it's divided. And this has been very much misunderstood as caste system, but it isn't. We all need each other. The universe is loved not for its own sake, but because the self lives in it. The gods are loved not for their own sake, but because the self lives in them. Everything is loved not for its own sake, but because the self lives in it. This self has to be realized. Hear about this self and meditate on it. Hear about it, meditate on it. What is the self? What is the Lord of Love? The Lord of Love, no larger than you know what this one too. Larger than a thumb. Where does he live? In the hearts of all. And deep in the hearts of all, what happens is what? The light of all lights. Thank you. Bhagavad Gita. Where is the kingdom of heaven? You see? You know it. So here he's saying you know it. But meditate on it. Meditate on it. And of course, the more you contemplate it, it's quite an exciting thing to contemplate, right? And then your heart fills with love because you're going beyond the petty things of this world suddenly. You're not thinking about, oh, if I could have that dress, or if I could have that, or if I could have this. You're not. What are you doing? Your mind is full of this contemplation, full of it, right? So then something happens to you and you go, and this is what I learned to do, which I think I taught most of you. When somebody is horrible, what do I say? The mind is crazy, but they are a diamond inside. They just don't know it.
Love them anyway.
You love them anyway. From a distance. From a distance. You remember, love them anyway. But from a distance. If somebody is not ready to hear and you try to teach them, wow, they'll kick you in the face. They will. They will. So this is discriminative discernment, knowing when to just keep quiet, not to make your point of view. There's no point. They're not going to hear you anyway. And this takes a great deal of non-attachment and ego. And this is a dissolve the ego. And that's how you can do it. The self is in the person. They're nuts. So I'm not going near them. They don't know they're the self. But I will. And what would your next step be after that thought process? It will, I'll pray for them when I'm at home. When I'm out of their energy field. While I'm in the energy field, can't do it. I'm too human. I'm uncomfortable here. And I don't want to do it. And that would make it fake. You see, you're very honest to yourself constantly. You never lie to yourself. I can't do it here because it make it fake. When I go home, when I'm in a nice place, when I'm in my quiet space, take a deep breath and, oh God, bless that evil mind. May it be full of light. That's what I do. Bless that evil mind. May it be full of light. There's no other way. For me, I can't do it any other way. But at the same time, I have to also know that this is wrong. Because otherwise, the world will be chaotic and everybody would manipulate us and make us into pulp. And our master said, be as strong as a lion, but as meek as a lamb. So you have to do both as a yogi. Sometimes you just need to step up. And then again, get away from the judgment of judging yourself. Come from that place of love. Come from that place of the self. The self. The self. Come from that place. And then that is one of the highest practices, but very difficult for people to do unless you've been meditating for a long time. It's hard. And then if you've been meditating and you're still full of anger, it doesn't work also. It doesn't work. You have to, that's why by the practice of the 8 limbs of yoga, the impurities dwindle away, and there dawns the light of wisdom, leading to discriminative discernment. So if you just think of the 8 limbs of yoga, and then in time you practice, first thing you start on is, okay, I need to practice and I also need to detach. And this is what Sri Patanjali tells us. And the story that's in the Sutras, I'm going to tell it again because it really is an incredible story, because it really makes you think about non-attachment. It really makes you think. So there's this great sage in India, we call him Narada. People think he's fictitious or just a legend, and according to my father, he's real. and he's one of these great angels, like you would have Angel Gabriel, or all the different angels you have. And anyway, he constantly visits Earth. So one day Narada comes to Earth and he sees a man meditating on the ground, and he's meditated so much that there's an anthill around him. I don't think I could meditate like that, could you? Well, wow, that's something, isn't it? And the man goes, Narada, please, you're very close to Lord Shiva. Will you ask Lord Shiva, how many more lives do I have to live? Yes, I'll ask him, come back and I'll let you know in a year's time. And then he goes further into the forest, and there's another guy saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Om, Narada, can you please ask Lord Shiva for me how many more lifetimes I need to live on this earth? He goes, I will. So anyway, Narada goes, comes back a few years later, and the guy with this anthill is even bigger than anthill, sitting there in meditation. He said, Narada, have you got an answer for me? And he goes, yes, I have. Lord Shiva says you have only 4 more lifetimes. I go, what? 4 more? Oh, my hard work, meditating all the time, and I got 4 more lifetimes. Oh my God, right? So he goes to the forest, and the singing guy goes, Narada, tell me, how many more lifetimes? And he goes, you see that tree? He goes, yeah. See the leaves on it? Yeah, I see the leaves on it. Well, that's how many lifetimes, if you can count that. And the guy goes, yeah, take time, but I can count the leaves on the tree. Thank you. And suddenly, the chariot arrives, and he goes, what's all this? Well, you're not bothered about all the lifetimes, so you might as well come with us now. You're done. Right? And the karma's burned because not bothered. It's not. Equanimity of mind is yoga. Balance is yoga. Acceptance is yoga. Ishvara pranidhanam is what's going to save you. Surrender to the divine. So you see, that's why I love the sutras. There's all these methods in one book. So if one doesn't work, you take another one. You take another one. But you see, you can meditate and you're still attached to something. You still want something, even wanting peace. People come and they go, Nalanie, I meditate and I have no peace. You can't even want that. What? Why do I meditate? Take it easy. It's mind stuff. You need to get in touch with the self. What's the self? The Lord of love. When you feel love again in your heart, you know you're there. When you feel love again in your heart. When you don't feel that love, I think you get a little bit wobbly. When the anger goes, the fear goes. And that's why heartbreak is so hard for people. It's hard because it's like a shift in your energy field. It's like somebody takes you and shifts you. You don't know who you are anymore. But realize that's just the body getting used to, the senses getting used to something different. It's not a punishment. It's a growth. It's a growth. And when you can see it that way, then you start to detach from, okay, this has happened. It's really not, I'm not in a good place. So what can I do to pamper me? What can I do now? And for that me, I would change into we. What can we do to pamper others? Because when I'm in me, I just it's too much stuff there. Becomes too egotistical. Becomes too all about me. When you can see the self in everybody, that person, and you're basically the same. But because we live in a world of duality, we have to go through the play. We have no choice. Just accept it. And that's the difficult thing. That's the non-attachment, the acceptance. Acceptance is when you see you're resisting. Why? No whys, no but, no if. Got that? It's happened. What's the solution? It's happened. You can't change it. It's happened. You can't bring somebody back when they die. You cannot. It's happened. What's the solution? And this is where we got Master Shivananda's song. Serve, love, give, meditate, purify, realize. Do good, be kind and be compassionate. Enquire who am I and be free. Adapt, adjust, accommodate. Bear insult, bear injury, highest sadhana. Do it now, do it now, do it now. Got it? Adapt, adjust, accommodate. That's the only thing you can do. But if you ask the other person to do it, they can't. They don't know how. They can't. You have to do it. You are the one that's receiving the suffering. So this is how you get through all this. So much to learn in this path of yoga. So much to grow. Where do we have time to complain? No time to complain. When you hear yourself complain, oh, there it goes again. It's okay, I'm human. By the practice of contentment, supreme joy. So immediately say, I'm so grateful for one thing. Just think of one thing you're grateful for. Just one thing. You don't have to think of a lot. Just one thing. But really grateful for, so that you feel it in your heart. What does that do? That shifts the frequency of your heart. It shifts it. It just shifts it from a really sad place to a better place. I won't say a beautiful place, but to a better place so you can bear it. You can bear the pain. That's all you do. Bear insult, bear injury. Highest practice. Yeah. I hear so many lovely stories from people and how they've gone through it. And I just think the human spirit is amazing. And when you love the Lord of love that's in you and you focus on that Lord of love, you become amazing. You have strength that you never believed you had. You really will say, wow, how did I do this? Thank you for allowing me to get through this. Thank you for allowing me to get through this pain. I don't know how I could have done it without you. That's how I said it all the time. Thank you for giving me this strength. Wow. Because I don't know how I could do it. I don't think I was capable of this. Right? And then you feel happy. Then you know you have that strength. Stronger than you. There's a great friend inside of you. And, Francis Bacon, the writer, called it Beatrice. You can give her whatever you name. God, love, Jesus, Shiva. Whatever name you want. And this is why I love our system. Sometimes God is a child. Sometimes God is a lover. Sometimes God is your friend. Sometimes you are the servant of God. You have all these different aspects. So when you're doing something for somebody, you think, I'm serving God. It just all works if you go for the highest thinking of love.